Talk Radio 56. The pregame show with Pat Foley is brought to you by Budweiser, the king of beers. Reach for that distinctively clean, crisp taste that says Budweiser. For all you do, this Bud's for you. And now let's join WIND's Pat Foley for the Chicago Blackhawk Hockey Pregame Show.
There's only one team that has beaten the Chicago Blackhawks in Chicago Stadium so far this year. That is the team the Hawks will face off against tonight. Hello again, everybody. Pat Foley from Chicago Stadium, where the Hawks take on the Winnipeg Jets. And even though it's the middle of December, this is the last time these two teams will meet in the regular season. They've already played twice, with the Jets winning here in Chicago and the Blackhawks returning the favor by winning in Winnipeg in late November. Since the Jets came into the stadium and beat the Blackhawks in the second home game of the year, the Hawks have gone 12 in a row without losing, including 11 wins. And they currently enter the game with the best record in the league. So the Blackhawks in Winnipeg tonight. We'll have some more information after this timeout on WIND.
Sports Vision is
come in tied for second place in the Smythe division. They are 2 games over the 500 mark with 14 wins, 12 losses, and 3 ties. And they've not been a bad road team either. In fact, they're over 500 away from home. 6-5-1 is their road record. And last night, they went into St. Louis and took 2 points from the Blues, recording a victory over St. Louis by a score of 4-3. So the Blackhawks and the Winnipeg Jets, and we'll hear from Orval Tessier after this timeout on WIND. A victory the other night in Chicago Stadium when your new captain scored 4 goals. His centerman had 5 assists. But maybe the biggest goal of the game came from a guy who has only scored 2 all year, Peter Marsh. You had lost a game in Boston under similar circumstances when your opposition scored at the end of the second period. But this time, Peter came out in the first minute, got a hard work type of goal, which is the way he's been playing all year, although they haven't quite been going in the way you'd like to see.
Well, Peter hasn't been too lucky around the net. Him and Timmy Higgins, especially, those two have been really hard-working forwards, probably 2 of the better forecheckers in the team, and they just have not had any luck around the net when they've had chances, and they haven't had too many chances. And on the ice for the goal at the end of the second period here the other night, and I was rather upset at it, and we talked about it in the dressing room at the end of the second, and giving Quebec a little bit of life that late in the period is dangerous. And the goal that he scored was a good goal because he could have shot quickly and maybe have missed, but he held on until he had the proper opening, and it gave us a lift, and it sure knocked them back on their heels a little bit.
You mentioned Marsh and Higgins, and you did a little subtle juggling on that those third and fourth lines. Reasoning for that?
Well, I think the reasoning was just what we were talking about. Peter had 1 goal in 30 games, and Timmy had 4, and playing with different centermen a little bit, and we had not been getting much offensive production. And these guys, you can't knock them, because they only have that many goals, but they've created openings for us by penalties that the opposition has had to take against them. They've checked very hard and have been some of the better aggressive players. But I still need a little bit of scoring because if your other 2 lines are not doing that well, then you've got a lot of trouble. So they have to come back and do some scoring. And the new combination got 2 goals against Quebec, which is certainly a big help.
Well, you're up to second in the team defense category now, and maybe just as important, your power play seems to be coming back after a little bit of a slump, and that's got to brighten your day a little bit.
Well, there's no question that they're keying on our power play, the opposition. I mean, they get the same stats as we do, and you see yourselves up at 34.8, so they're looking at the situation. I think what has helped our power play quite a bit is the emergence of the Lyjak Sutter Preston line. Now I can use a fresh unit out there. Tom was out for 3 weeks, and it was difficult to use Sutter and Preston, and Sutter was not scoring for quite a while. And now that he's got his touch back, if we see that the 1 unit is not working well, we can come right out there with that 2nd unit and be equally as dangerous. Now they've got to defend 2 units and defend, because Crossman and Brown are doing a pretty good job on the point. So, the opposition coach cannot key on a Savard line and Murray and Wilson, because if they shut them down a little bit, we'll come back with the other unit and still have a pretty good chance.
You play a team tonight that is very similar in style to the way that your team likes to play. It's a skating team. The Winnipeg Jets have a lot of speed, and just looking at it before the game, I would guess that what you would like to try to avoid is getting into a horse race here.
Well, we thought we'd get one of those in Winnipeg, and we seemed to skated well in Winnipeg. We allowed some bad goals, but we always came back a few seconds later with a goal to tie them up or stay in the game. We don't want to play catch-up hockey if possible here, and I think we have to bump their forwards, and we have to forecheck their defensemen. That is our game plan. Now, whether we execute it or not remains to be seen, but we feel that we made amends when we back into Winnipeg and avenged the loss, the only loss that we've had here, and we certainly wouldn't like to lose again to them here.
Can you give me an unsung hero the last couple of weeks, a guy that has not gotten a lot of ink or maybe not scored a lot? Is there a guy that in Orval Tessier's mind has been doing the job consistently day in and day out and yet doesn't seem to get much recognition?
Well, I think there's quite a few guys. Everybody heads for the name players, and I think the guy, and I hate, me, I don't like to single out people, but I think the guy that has impressed me, one of the guys, let's put it that way, that has impressed me tremendously since the first game of the season has been Rich Preston. I don't think I've seen a better corner man or a better man along the boards, a stronger individual in those situations. I haven't seen too many, and he doesn't seem the type. He doesn't say too much. He just goes about his business, and I just don't know where our hockey club would be if Rich wouldn't have come out with the start that he's had. And kills penalties, plays the power play, plays his shifts, is durable, and is just a great hockey player in my books, and does everything you ask, and does it well, and just puts the extra in it. And I think that, everybody is looking at a lot of other people, but I think he's one of the big keys of this hockey club.
You got a lot of young kids that you would like to have them take some example from that veteran.
Well, I think we've got a few in this team that really have an awful lot of respect for him by watching him play. And what I admire of him, it doesn't matter if it's in Boston or if it's in Montreal or if it's in Washington or any place, the game is always the same. He doesn't pick his spots. He doesn't pick any place. He plays to the best of his ability just about every night. I haven't seen him play what you would call a bad game due to lack of effort. He might have not a great game because it's not going well, but not from lack of effort.
Good luck tonight.
Thank you.
That's Orval Tessier. You've been listening to the Hawk Pregame Show. Now stay tuned for Chicago Blackhawk Hockey. Back in Chicago Stadium, both the Chicago Blackhawks and the Winnipeg Jets are out. And we'll be back with starting lineups in first period action after these messages on WIND. Winnipeg Jets defeated the Chicago Blackhawks by a score of 5-3. Way back on October 10th. That was only the third game overall of the year. Then in late November, the Hawks went up to Winnipeg and beat them by a score of 7-5. And as you heard Orval Tessier mention, that was a game in which the Jets continually took the lead, only to have the Blackhawks score very quickly thereafter and keep the pace. And then a big third period provided the margin of victory for the Blackhawks there. So the Jets, as I said, are the only team that has come into Chicago Stadium and beaten the Blackhawks so far this year. We are either going to have a very late arriving crowd or we are not going to have a sellout tonight. Still a good-looking crowd on hand for the Blackhawks in Winnipeg. And before we give you the starting lineup, we'll take this time to pause and enjoy both national anthems. This was the 91st period of hockey the Blackhawks had played this year. There has been only one other time when the Hawks scored 5 goals in a single period. That, as I said, was in the second game of the year. There have been 5 other times when the Hawks scored as many as 4 in a single period. But here in the 91st period of the year, the Hawks picked up a big 5. Let's go through the summary now. And it did not take long for Chicago to get rolling. As a matter of fact, before the game was 3 minutes old, here's what happened. Doug Wilson to Peter Martin. His lead to Gardner. Oh, he was breaking nicely at center, but the pass just missed him. Now Gardner hustled to save the ice in center. They score! Tim Higgins! Billy Gardner hustle! And that's what created the scoring opportunity. It would have been icing, but Gardner hustled and beat the Jets defense with a loose puck. Tim Higgins scoring his 6th of the year off of Gardner's extra effort. Gardner and Peter assisting at 2:58 to make it 1-0 Blackhawks. And then the Hawks struck again at the 7:16 mark. Here's how it happened. Now Brown back into the Jet zone. Pete Brown moving right in front. And as he stick handled, he lost. And now Cedric Sear. He scores! Cedric Sear took the pass nicely. Pete Brown's speed was a little bit behind him, but he received it beautifully. And as he went to his knees, he shot it in from point-blank range. 2-0 in favor of the Hawks. So Dennis Sear notching his 3rd of the year, assisted nicely by Keith Brown at 7:16 to make it 2-0. But 15 seconds later, the Jets came right back as the Hawks gave the puck away in their own zone. Thomas Steen held it in nicely at the blue line, moved in, then centered it for Willie Lindstrom, who fired in from point-blank range. Lindstrom from Steen at 7:31 to cut the Hawk lead to 2-1. But halfway through the period, the Blackhawks struck again. Into the corner to Lysiak. Tom Lysiak on the near board. Dropped it there for Sutter. Daryl Sutter feeding Crossman the shot. And a save. Rebound Preston. They score! Chris Preston picked up the rebound just as the penalty expired and jammed it in behind Sotar. And the Blackhawks, with 3 goals in the first half of the period, now lead it 3-1. Rich Preston scoring his 15th of the year from Doug Crossman and Daryl Sutter at the 10-minute mark. That was not a power play goal officially, although for all intents and purposes it was, because the penalty had expired just 2 seconds earlier and the penalized player had not gotten back into the play yet, but it's not an official power play goal. Nonetheless, it gave the Hawks a 3-1 lead. However, 39 seconds later, the Jets came back again. Dave Christian with a quick shot that appeared to surprise, and also Esposito might have been a bit screened on it, but he beat Esposito cleanly to the stick side. Dave Christian from Don Spring at 10:39 to cut the lead to 3-2. The Hawks regained a 2-goal advantage, and here's how it happened. Out from the draw, Larmer, the shot. He scores! Larmer! A quick blast from the spot, 40 feet out, and he blew that by Sotar's gloved hand before Sotar knew what hit him. 4-2 now in favor of the Blackhawks. That quick shot from Larmer was nearly in and out of the net before Sotar moved. Larmer, his 13th of the year, from Al Secord and Keith Brown at 11:32 to give the Hawks a 2-goal advantage, but they weren't done yet. A couple of minutes later, they struck again. Doug Crossman to Rich Preston at center. Preston over the line, near board, centered it. Lysiak spins back, dropped it for Brown, moves right in, the shot, he scores! Keith Brown! And the Jet goaltender Sotar complaining that Preston interfered with it. It appeared that Sotar was indeed well out of the net, and I think Preston was being checked by one of the Winnipeg players. And so the goal looks like it will stand, as Brown, as it turned out, shot it into an almost wide open net. 5-2 now in favor of the Blackhawks. Keith Brown scoring his 3rd of the year from Tom Lysiak and Rich Preston at 14-13. That was all for Doug Sotar. At that point, he was pulled from the game and replaced by Ed Stanowski. And the Jets trying anything they can to stem the Blackhawk tide. Finally, that was the end of the first period scoring. The penalties to Bengt Lundholm for hooking at 7:58. Morris Lukowicz got a double minor, and Rick Patterson only a single minor at 13:47. And then Greg Fox for high sticking at 15:33. Shots on goal in the first period. The Blackhawks had 19. The Jets had 6. And that is fairly reflective of the way the first period went. Sometimes that statistic can be misleading, but tonight it is not. 19-6, the Hawks outshot the Jets, and 5-2, they outscored them. At the end of 20 minutes of play, that's your count. Chicago 5, Winnipeg 2. We'll be back after this timeout on WIND. Stadium. There's the second period summary now. It was a period in which the Hawks managed to pad their lead with a couple of goals. They came in quick succession. The first came at about the 5-minute mark. Here's what happened. It's still in the Chicago zone. Babbage, the shot. He sent that wide. Came to the near board, March. Peter Marsh to Tim Higgins at center. Higgins weaving, dropped it from Marsh over the line, fires, he scores! Peter Marsh picks it up and lets go a quick drive just over the blue line, and he blew it by Stanowski on the glove side. 6-2 in favor of the Blackhawks. Marsh scoring his second in as many games and his third of the year, assisted by Tim Higgins at .457 to give the Hawks a 4-goal lead, and then just over a minute later, Chicago struck again. Now here's Dennis Savard at center. He moves in over the line, spins on the far side, now took a bump. Savard still stick handling though, and dropped it to Secord for Larmer to Secord, the shot, he scored! Oh, the Hawks are on fire! That line moved it around with pinpoint passing in traffic, and Secord wound up firing it in from point-blank range. The Jets are befuddled as the Hawks lead now 7-2. Al Secord notching number 26 for the year, assisted by Larmer and Savard at 6'10". There were 2 minor penalties to the Hawks and 1 to the Jets in the second period. The shots on goal for Winnipeg 12, for Chicago 8. The 2-period totals, Blackhawks 27 shots and Jets with 18. So there's your summary, the score at the end of 2. The Blackhawks 7, the Jets 2. We'll be back in a couple of minutes now. We'll get the sports news of the day. I'm Pat Foley on Talk Radio 56.
Thank you.
Pat Foley back in Chicago Stadium, where the Blackhawks are having a whole bundle of fun tonight. It is 7-2 in favor of Chicago at the end of 2 periods of play. The goals have all come from different players. The Hawks have goals from Tim Higgins, his 6th. Dennis Sear, his 3rd. Rich Preston, his 15th. Steve Larmer, his 13th. Keith Brown, his 3rd. Peter Marsh, his 3rd. And Al Secord, his 26th of the year. Those are the 7 Chicago goals tonight. The Winnipeg Jets with a couple of tallies from Willie Lindstrom and Dave Christian. The Hawks have outshot Winnipeg 27-18 in the first 40 minutes tonight. Now here both teams starting to take the ice. Blackhawks, barring a collapse here in the 3rd period, the Hawks this will be their 13th game in a row at home without a loss, including, this would be 8 straight wins at home. Blackhawks tonight are going after their 20th victory of the year, which is the tops in the National Hockey League. They would be the tops in the league. Minnesota has 19. Montreal has 18 wins. And Montreal is playing tonight, but Minnesota is not. Hawks with a 1-point lead over the North Stars entering the action tonight with 2 games in hand.
There's 2 seconds remaining.
Oh, the Hawks will start with Tony Esposito down in the goal to our left. So the Red Wings tied tonight. So the Hawks. Here's the announcement now.
Jets 14 for a total of 32. The Blackhawks 11 for a total of 38. Coming up in a moment are Robinson Jewelers 3 stars of the game.
We'll stick here for a moment to get those stars before we break away.
Tonight's Robinson Jewelers 3 stars of the game. The game's number 3 star with a goal and assist, Chicago's Tim Higgins. The game's number 2 star with a goal and assist, Chicago's Rich Preston. And
the number 1 star game, Robinson Jewelers star with a goal and assist, Chicago's Keith Brown. Goal and 2 assists.
Final score, 10-3. Hawks will have the summary after this timeout.
This is the Chicago Blackhawks post-game show with Pat Foley. Brought to you by Budweiser, the king of beers. Reach for that distinctively clean, crisp taste that says Budweiser. For all you do, this Bud's for you.
Pat Foley back in Chicago Stadium. Here is the game summary. We're going to do a little bit different tonight. 16,436 were on hand, and they saw a game that was a little out of the ordinary, a big blowout. So I'm going to do a post-game show that's a little bit out of the ordinary. Instead of running down all the goals and assists and everything, let's hear them all again. You want to hear 10 in a row? Play them again, Sam. Doug Wilson to Peter Marsh. His lead to Gardner. Oh, he was breaking nicely at center, but the pass just missed him. Now Gardner hustled to save the icing center. They score! Tim Higgins! Billy Gardner hustled, and that's what created the scoring opportunity. It would have been icing, but Gardner hustled and beat the Jets defense to the loose puck, put it just outside the goal crease, and Tim Higgins jammed it in. 1-0 Blackhawks. Now Brown back into the Jet zone. Pete Brown moving right in front. And as he stick handled, he lost. And now Senator Sear. He scores! Sear hits the pass nicely. Pete Brown's lead was a little bit behind him, but he received it beautifully. And as he went to his knees, he shot it in from point-blank range. 2-0 in favor of the Hawks. Into the corner to Lysiak. Tom Lysiak on the near board. Dropped it there for Sutter. Daryl Sutter feeding Crossman. The shot. And a save. Rebound. Preston. They score! Chris Preston picked up the rebound just as the penalty expired and jammed it in behind Sotard. And the Blackhawks, with 3 goals in the first half of the period, now lead it 3-1. Now from the draw, Larmer, the shot. He scores! Larmer! A quick blast from the slot. 40 feet out, and he blew that by Sotard's gloved head before Sotard knew what hit him. 4-2 now in favor of the Blackhawks. Doug Crossman to Rich Preston at center. Preston over the line, near board, centered it. Lysiak spins back, dropped it for Brown, moves right in, the shot, he scores! He's Brown! And the Jet goaltender Sotard complaining that Preston interfered with it. It appeared that Sotard was indeed well out of the net, but I think Preston was being checked by one of the Winnipeg players. And so the goal looks like it will stand, as Brown, as it turned out, shot it into an almost wide open net. 5-2 now in favor of the Blackhawks. It's still in the Chicago zone. Babbage, the shot. He sent that wide. Came to the near board, Marsh. Peter Marsh to Tim Higgins at center. Higgins, weaving, dropped it for Marsh over the line, fires, he scores! Peter Marsh picks it up and lets go a quick drive just over the blue line, and he blew it by Stanowski on the glove side. 6-2 in favor of the Blackhawks. Now here's Dennis Savard at center. He moves in over the line, spins on the far side, now took a bump. Savard still stick handling though, and dropped it to Secord for Larmer to Secord. The shot, he scores! Oh, the Hawks are on fire! That line moved it around with pinpoint passing in traffic, and Secord wound up firing it in from point-blank range. The Jets are befuddled as the Hawks lead now 7-2. Then Wilson took it from him for Sear. In over the line, Sear centered. Patterson, he scores! Ricky Patterson tipped it in off a brilliant feed from Dennis Sear, who put it right on his stick. And all Patterson had to do was redirect it into a wide open net, which he did with proficiency. It is 8-2 Blackhawks. Now Higgins fought off a check, clearing it back into the Winnipeg zone. There's David Babbage, lost it to Marsh. Marsh on the far side centered it, and it came through to the near board. Larmer moves right in alone. The shot, he scores! Larmer dug it out of the near corner, walked in all goal. Campbell lost it to Savard. Dennis Savard on the near side. Weaves into the slot. Savard to Kelly for Secord. He scored! Al Secord and the Blackhawks are in figures as Secord scores his second of the game off a brilliant feed off some more of that savoir-faire from Dennis Savard. It is 10-2 Chicago. Sweet music to my ears. 10-3 the final score. The final shots 38 for the Blackhawks, 32 for the Winnipeg Jets. Again, the three stars, Tim Higgins, the third star, Rich Preston, number 2, and Keith Brown with a goal and 2 assists. He really sparked that first period burst, was named the game's number 1 star. I could sit and listen to those tapes all night. But we'll be back for more after this timeout. Now at home without a defeat, including 8 straight victories here in Chicago Stadium. Tonight, win number 20. That's the most of any team in the league. Only 5 losses. That's the least of any team in the league. And 6 ties. The point total moves to 46. So the Blackhawks are 3 points ahead of the Minnesota North Stars and have a game in hand on Minnesota. The Winnipeg Jets fall back to just 1 game over the 500 mark. So from here, the Hawks will head to Toronto to take on the Maple Leafs. Will be there on Saturday night. The pregame show beginning at 6:50 Chicago time. And again, returning back to home ice on Sunday when Terry Ruskowski and the Los Angeles Kings come in Sunday night at 7:35. They'll be followed 1 week from tonight, next Wednesday, by the Toronto Maple Leafs. Again, good tickets still available for both those games here at the stadium, as well as all Ticketron outlets. And don't forget that 1,000 tickets are held back for each home game, which do not go on sale until 6:30, 1 hour beforehand. So if you don't have them in advance, you can still get them the night of the game at Chicago Stadium. So that should about do it from here. Tom Watt got to be spinning his head a little bit downstairs in the Winnipeg locker room. The Blackhawks came out with 5 goals in the first 14 minutes of the game, and it was clear sailing from then on. 10-3 the final score. We hope you enjoyed the broadcast. I know you enjoyed the outcome. Again, a reminder to be with us today at 6:50 with the pregame show from Toronto. Until then, so long, everyone.